Hey folks. Hey. Welcome back to the Daily Strength Live Edition on Facebook. Sorry, this is a very squeaky bench. I'll try and stay as still as I can so you don't have to deal with that. Facebook changed some things. There's like new buttons and all kinds of stuff. This is cool. So, welcome. Glad you can join me. If you're just hopping in, make sure you let me know what you're having not in the comments. Let me know what you're having to drink in the comments. It's Monday. Give me a break. I'm just getting warmed up. I want to talk about why motivation is kind of BS. I'm not a big fan of waiting on motivation or trying to feel motivated or looking toward outside sources of inspiration for motivation. I'm so tempted to push all these new buttons down here and see what they do, but I don't want to mess up the broadcast. So let me know what you're having to drink. How was everyone's weekend? Let's get a little conversation going. Always fun. Happy Monday. Rose, how are you? Good morning. Great to have all of you. I know we don't usually do these on Monday, but I was at the gym. I'm just starting to get into my routine. I'm like, you know what? Let's procrastinate. Let's do a little Facebook Live. I think this is a really important topic. So we're going to dive right into it. I'm not going to take up too much time. I don't like motivation, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But a lot of people ask me, like, Pat, what do you do to stay motivated? Or what can I do to find greater motivation? And the answer is, I don't know. I'm not somebody who's constantly motivated. You know, for me, motivation has always been, it's been like the tides. Some days it comes in, other days it goes out. It's very cyclical. It waxes, it wanes. I'm never like consistently motivated, you know, and there's things that you can do to kind of amp yourself up. You can watch inspiring YouTube videos. You could listen to a talk like this. But all of that to me is like a mental lollipop, right? You see, you know, a really cool YouTube video or you hear a song and it gets you amped up, and then 30 seconds later that lollipop is dissolved and you've left with nothing. This sounds probably like pretty much like any like self-help conference, right? Or any motivational conference. You go to these things, and at the end of the weekend, you come out and you're just amped up, you're ready to go, and then for like 3 days you're on fire, and then what? And then it fizzles out and you've got nothing. This is why I don't like centering your goals around feeling motivated. And thank you for the likes and hearts. I mean, I hope this resonates, and I'm sure you've been there because I've been there as well. When I was first starting out, you know, it was constantly like, oh man, how can I keep motivated? How can I stay motivated? But then what I learned was that motivation is very finicky. It's very unreliable, and it's hardly ever there when you need it or when you want it. And if you're going for long-term success, if you really want to be successful long-term, you have to learn to take action anyway. You have to learn to act in spite of motivation. And what I have discovered is that it's that consistent action, and it's those habits that are built through that consistent action that will lead you to success. So that way, even if you're not motivated, you're still going to be making progress. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like when I was first starting to eat very healthy, it was very difficult. Like I had to feel motivated to eat healthy. But then when I got over that and I just started focusing on consistency and action and habits, even in spite of motivation, now I have such a strongly ingrained habit that motivation doesn't matter. Like I don't have to feel motivated to eat healthy. The habit is there. The process is automatic. So whether I feel really excited or really low energy, it doesn't matter. Like I'm in the habit, I'm in the pattern of consistent action. So I hope that makes sense. Does it make sense? Let's take some questions and comments and give some greetings. Benjamin, hello. Pat, how are you? Rose, I am great. Just finished my workout and I'm heading to work. Awesome. Don't watch it and drive. Listen and drive. So if motivation is brought about by action, I think it is. I think the best way to find motivation is through action. And I think through consistent action, you're going to build the habits that will become inherently, intrinsically motivating, right? When you build that motivation from within. So there's really two sources of motivation, right? There's extrinsic motivation, trying to pull motivation from outside sources, from somebody else, from an inspiring video, from a weekend conference. And those are those mental lollipops. Those they always fade. They're never there when you need them, and it's no way to make long-term progress. But intrinsic motivation builds from action. It builds from consistency, and most importantly, it builds from confidence. And the only way to increase confidence, self-confidence, and self-esteem is by taking action and committing to a process in spite of whatever your daily mood might be, in spite of whether you wake up feeling super energized or super enthusiastic. So I'll give you another example. My background is playing guitar. So when I was very young, I was watching a guitar clinic from one of my favorite guitarists, Nuno Bettencourt, from the band Extreme, who I listened to obsessively all the time. And somebody was asking Nuno, and they said, Nuno, how do you find the motivation to play for 8 hours a day? And his short answer was very similar to mine, but it always stuck with me. He's like, I don't feel motivated to play guitar for 8 hours a day. He's like, this is a grind. But you either want it or you don't. And that one line, you either want it or you don't, has always stuck with me through everything in my entire life. And I remember when I moved, when I began to not just play guitar, but got into fitness, that I remember Nuno saying, you either want it or you don't. So I had to make that decision of, do I really want this? And sometimes you might not, but I think you do. I think if you're listening to this or watching this, you probably do want it. And I decided if I want it, then I'm going to have to learn to take action and practice anyway. To take action anyway, to practice in spite of days of low motivation, whether that's for my fitness, coming into the gym. I'm not particularly energized today. My kids were up like all night, right? I have 3 kids, in the middle of my Facebook Live. Don't call me in the middle of Facebook Live. So, I have two toddlers, 1 baby. So I have every reason to not feel particularly motivated to come into the gym right now, but it doesn't matter. I have the habit. I know what I want. And I cannot rely on motivation because it's going to be incredibly unreliable, especially when you have 3 kids under the age of 4 running around your house and you're not getting a whole lot of sleep, and there's just all the fun of raising young kids. Sean, what helped me keep motivated was choosing a workout program based primarily on specific exercises to give the same sensory stimulation as the compulsive movements I do on board. I mean, that's fantastic. So if we're talking about taking action in spite of motivation, there's a few ways that we can do this. So my whole argument is, if you want to make success in life, you can't rely on feeling motivated. You can't think that you're going to go to a motivational conference and come out a completely changed person. What you have to do is flip that mindset around and decide that you're going to take action anyway. You're going to take action in spite of motivation. And I sent out an email 2 days ago, I think it was, talking about kind of one way. There's a few ways that you can do this, but one way to do it is to take a shift from the mindset of all or nothing to always something. And what I mean by that is, if you want to build a habit that will last in spite of motivation, you have to focus on frequency of effort, not just duration. And in fact, duration can be an unnecessary barrier or impediment at first. So for example, if you're just getting started exercising or eating healthy, if you focus on duration, if you're saying, I have to go to the gym 4 times a week and I have to go for an hour to an hour and a half, there's going to be days where you're just not going to feel like going to the gym for an hour and a half. And you're not going to feel particularly motivated to do that. And that's going to be a very big barrier to entry for you. And then what's going to happen is you might skip a day. And then what that will cause is a decrease in your confidence. And as soon as confidence starts to decrease, your chances of establishing a habit significantly decrease as well. So you want to make sure that when you're starting out with anything, whether it's fitness, eating, meditation, anything that you want to get better at, anything you really want to build a habit in, you have to focus on frequency first, doing at least a little bit every single day. So, for example, I think meditation is another good one. When I first started meditating, there was no way that I was going to be able to commit to an hour of meditation a day. I would have quit immediately. I did not have the motivation to meditate for 1 hour every day. So what I did is I just started with 2 minutes a day, and I would do it in my car. Like before I went to the grocery store, I would just meditate for 2 minutes in the car. But I did it every single day. And the thing was, 2 minutes was just enough, right? It was just enough that I didn't have to feel motivated to do 2 minutes of meditation a day. It was extremely accessible, and accessibility is a huge part of this process. And then what happened is, once I had that habit, I was meditating for 2 minutes a day. I cranked it up to 5, no big deal. 5 turned to 15, and then 15 turned to, I still do about 15 minutes, but now I do it twice a day. I do it in the morning and night. And now I have a really solid habit of meditation that I don't need to feel motivated to maintain. But if I would have started with 2 15-minute blocks twice a day, I probably would have failed. Most likely, I absolutely would have failed. But because I started with frequency at smaller doses first, that allowed me to build that habit that I needed to win at meditation, so to speak, or to win at something I wanted to be good at, in spite of not feeling particularly motivated to do it. So take the same thing with exercise. So a lot of my kettlebell challenges have you exercising in some capacity every day. And people will say, well, why are you working out every single day? Don't you need rest? Don't you need recovery? And so, I understand that. That's a fair point. So I program rest and recovery workouts in. So not every day is super intense. But the point is, with my challenges, the routines are usually 20 to 15 minutes or less. They're really intense, they're really sweaty, but they're accessible, they're short, but they're frequent. You're doing it every single day. So that way you get into the habit of exercising, you get into the habit of movement. So that is where I would really start. If you feel like you're struggling to stay motivated, forget about motivation. Forget about it completely. Start with committing to something that you can do every day. I don't care how small it is. You know, Dan John has a saying. He says, little and often over the long haul. And it couldn't be any more salient of a point than what we're talking about right now. So, all right, maybe, you know, an hour and a half workout, you might have to feel pretty pumped up to do something like that. But what about 5 minutes of just kettlebell swings, right? What about 10 minutes of a few kettlebell complexes? Is this the ideal program? That's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about getting into a habit, getting into a routine, or building consistency and building confidence. That way, we don't have to have this conversation about feeling motivated, right? Once you're consistent, once you're in the habit, and you're beyond this first step of worrying whether or not you're going to wake up with motivation that day, then we can focus on finding the ideal routine. But there's no point in picking the ideal routine if you're just going to do it for 2 weeks and then stop. And then you get into this cycle of, oh, this routine looks really cool. And you get motivated. This is a constant snare, right? This is why people program hop all the time. They jump from one program to another because they're trying to derive a source of extrinsic motivation. And it's a mental lollipop. They look at a program and they say, this seems really cool. It gets them excited. I think this is going to motivate me. They do it for 2 weeks and then they quit. But then they repeat the process and then they do another program for 2 weeks and they quit. But they never, and it's an interesting way to really cheat yourself and to really fool yourself and to pretend like you're making progress and to pretend like you're keeping yourself motivated, but you're really not. It's a bluff. What you need to do is forget all of that and realize that the problem is that you need to build a habit. You need to build consistency and confidence. You need to stop looking for sources of extrinsic or external motivation. You need to stop program hopping. You need to commit to something, even if it isn't the ideal program, but something you can commit to and that you can build on every single day. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me some type of grunt of acknowledgement, and then we'll continue from there. So you can just leave a grunt in the comments. Likes and hearts are always appreciated as well. And then what's up, Nate? How are you? Rose, remembering why you were doing it keeps me motivated. Yeah, so like, what is your internal why? Why is this important to you? Why does it matter? I think is the first thing you should get clear on. So this is what I do with all my clients. When you work with me online, we go through this whole goal setting sheet. And not only do we say what your goals are, but we define, like, why is this important? Like, what about this is so meaningful to you that you're going to persist even on days you don't feel motivated? And getting clear on that is an essential exercise. For example, whatever, we were talking about Nuno Betancourt and the guitar, he said you either want it or you don't. But you have to know why you want it. You have to know your why, or else that's going to be completely pointless. So you're right. That's an excellent point. Sorry, just scrolling through the comments here. Solid advice, thanks, Pat. Thank you, Morgan. Jared, hey, what's up, man? How's everyone doing today? Happy Monday, by the way, everyone. Yo, Pat from Ireland. Motivation can be a crutch that develops dependency. I completely agree. Mindset will fluctuate, whereas consistent habits create create adherence regardless of mood. That is exactly my point, and that is extremely well stated, is that habits create consistency regardless of how you feel on the day-to-day, right? So I'm going to have, despite the fact that I'm a little bit tired today, if you can't tell by my slower rate of speech, just because I have 3 kids that just decided to terrorize us in the middle of the night, I'm having no problem coming into the gym. I have no problem eating healthy. I'll have no problem doing my work or playing guitar later because I focus on little and often over the long haul. So I didn't wake up and think, oh, well, I'm not feeling very motivated today, so I'm just going to go back to bed. No, I'm in the habit. So I got up and I had my green tea with my a little bit of coconut oil in there, and I got right to work, and now here we are. And here's the great thing. Here's the really cool thing, is even if you don't feel particularly motivated at first, if you just commit to doing something, just a little bit of something, chances are your mood will change, right? So if you're like, all right, I'll just do 5 minutes of kettlebell swings or 5 minutes of some body weight exercise or 10 minutes of one of Pat's challenges, chances are if you just start doing that, maybe that will turn into 10 minutes of kettlebell swings, or maybe that will turn into a full hour workout. Not always, but sometimes. And sometimes if you just get started, right, if you just begin the process with something that's very accessible, that doesn't seem overwhelming, your mindset can change in the middle of it. And what will happen is you might have came in with one mood and you'll finish with a completely different mood. But that could never happen unless, of course, you focused on habits and consistency rather than trying to rely on motivation. I will tell you that happens for me about 90% of the time. Even though even on the days where I don't particularly feel like doing something, just because I always get started, I would say about 85 to 90% of the time, I leave with a completely different mindset and mood than when I came in. Because once you get moving, once you get into the act of taking action, everything completely changes. And motivation is irrelevant. Even if it didn't change, it wouldn't matter because you would still do it anyways. But you often usually feel better. And what will happen is, all right, you started with 5 minutes of exercise, you ended up doing 20, and then that builds confidence. That's a huge win. And you're like, all right, that's awesome. And that's what we want, because as your confidence increases, so will your adherence. I can't really talk about just how important that is. What's up, Kevin? How are you? Eileen, welcome. Good to see everyone. John, on this muggy Monday morning, hello to you as well. Vincent, hey Pat, how do you balance an unplanned but needed rest day with an unnecessary day off, breaking your flow and consistency? So Vincent, I don't care what your life situation is, you can always find the time to do something, and that's the point here. So you might not be able to get into the gym to do your full routine, but if you have something planned on that day, do something. I don't like, all right, so maybe you were supposed to do an hour and a half lift, right? But life got in the way, you got stuck at home. Do some push-ups throughout the day. Do some squats throughout the day. Your mind is really, what we're trying to do is build the habit of movement and just committing to doing something. And here's the thing, no matter what you're trying to get good at, life is going to get in the way. Even when you have the habit and consistency, there's going to come times where your plan isn't going to work, where you're not going to be able to stick to the plan 100% of the time. And that's not what this conversation is about. The conversation isn't about being 100% on the plan 100% of the time. This conversation is about how do you develop the motivation habits that will carry you through to success, that will cause you to take action even when life gets in the way, even when motivation is low. And these are two different things. I don't think you'll ever be able to stick to a plan 100% of the time. No way. I've never been able to do it, and that's okay. You shoot high, you aim high, and then if you miss every now and then, that's no big deal, right? It's the approximation that we're going for. So for you, I would just recommend commit to something, whatever it is. Yeah, sure, all right. I had the kids' schedule got turned around, or my work day got really messed up, so I'm not going to have time to go to the gym. That's fine. Just go home and do something. Work on joint mobility. Go for a walk. Do something that is going to register as effort, as action, and as some measure of progress toward whatever your goal is. Because that, again, it's the difference between, can I check off that I did something, that I got a win, versus a loss that I just threw my hands up and gave up. And it's that forfeiting that we don't want. And when we forfeit is when we often set very unrealistic boundaries or very unrealistic expectations of ourselves. So if we constantly think, well, and this is the all or nothing attitude, right? If I can't do my plan 100%, then I'm throwing my hands up. And that's it. I give up. I might as well just stop and do nothing for the rest of the day. And that is what leads to adherence issues. That's what will lead to the big X mark, the big loss on the scoreboard. You need to flip that around. You need to go from always something. From Monday, right? You need to go from all or nothing to always something. So yes, we have our plan. It's a great plan. It's a fantastic plan, but we might not always be able to stick to it. So we need to make sure that we have something that we can do no matter what it is at any point. John, this is why I keep a kettlebell next to my TV at all times, just to remind myself that I could be doing something more productive while vegging out. It's fantastic. That's one of my favorite recommendations, is if you just keep a kettlebell in a relatively inconvenient spot in your house, kitchen, bedroom, living room, and then not only let it be a reminder, but hey, you can even challenge yourself. Every time you walk by that kettlebell, do 10 swings, do 5 goblet squats, do a few deadlifts, do something with it. I think the idea of intermittent exercise or just taking movement snacks is one of the best ways to make exercise accessible, to focus on little and often over the long haul. John with his infinite wisdom. What's up, Howard? How are you? So I hope this conversation has been helpful. I have to get back to my workout routine right now. We're working on some handstand push-ups. So this has been the Daily Strength. The recording will be up. We'll also put the recording on YouTube as well. I'm going to film a few other videos based on motivation this week that will be just on the YouTube channel. So remember, the big point here is don't rely on motivation. Make sure that, thank you for all the likes, everybody, and the hearts. I appreciate it. And if this was helpful, please do share it as well. I think this is an important message. You can't rely on motivation. It's going to come, it's going to go, and if it's here or it's not, it doesn't matter. You have to learn to take action anyways. You have to make sure that you are focusing on always something, as little as it is, rather than all or nothing. You have to make sure that your initial phase of building your consistency and habits focuses on movements that is accessible, on challenges that are accessible, not setting up too great a barrier of entries for yourself. John, movement snacks, brilliant. I did not come up with movement snacks. I got that from my friend Ariane, who she probably got it from somebody else. Anyway, folks, happy Monday, and we will catch you probably tomorrow. Have a good one.